evening and welcome to another edition of Film Nut. I am your host, Jeff Schubert. Glad you can be with us tonight. We have a great guest with us. His name is Tim Russ. Maybe you've seen him on ABC's Samantha Who. I know a lot of you have seen him on Star Trek Voyager. And tonight we're going to talk about a lot of things, but mainly about Star Trek of Gods and Men, a new miniseries in which he is reprising his role as Lieutenant Commander Tuvok, although he might not be a Lieutenant Commander yet. And he is also directing as well. So let me introduce you to Mr. Tim Russ.
How are you? Good to be here.
Thank you for coming by. So Star Trek of Gods and Men, maybe we have some viewers that know about it, some that don't. What is it and how did it come together?
Well, Star Trek of Gods and Men began with a phone call from the producer, Sky Conway. And I worked with Sky on a short film called Roddenberry and Patrol a year or so before that, which was sort of a short film about Gene Roddenberry in the sort of homage to Lucas in Love, the short film that he did. So it was a short story comedy about him coming up with the idea of selling the original Star Trek series. So he called me out of the blue about doing this feature. And at the time, he called me, but there was no script. And he asked me if I'd be interested in directing it and working on it. I said, yeah, I certainly would. I said, what, do you have a property? He says, no. We can come up with one. And he had a couple of writers on standby, Ethan Hawke and Jack Trevino. And we sort of all put our heads together and decided to come up with an outline, a storyline together. And each of us had a sort of an input into what we wanted to have in that story, conceptually. And
what did you want to have conceptually?
I personally wanted to put together something in which the lead characters, several of whom would be characters we recognize from either one or all of the series that have been on, but I wanted something where they would find themselves in a situation where they did not recognize where they were or who they were, and would have to discover what happened and why. And I wanted to put that kind of element into the story, so we'd see them in different roles, in different places, doing different things, and then wonder how they got there and have to figure out how to get them out of there. And at the same time to introduce something contemporary in terms of themes like in this, for example, in Gods and Men, we discuss freedom versus security, and we just discuss terrorism. And those elements are brought up in the film.
And it takes place 12 years after Captain Kirk's death, correct?
Yes.
And one of the things I liked about it as a fan of Star Trek is we see some different elements from the different Star Trek series,
yes,
like explained. So, for example, for fans of Voyager out there, you might remember the episode where there was this Omega molecule.
Right.
Right. So that comes into play.
Right.
And for you fans of the original series, if you ever remember the episode City on the Edge of Forever, there's that gateway portal that is an integral part.
That's right.
And, of course, as you alluded to, you have characters from all the different series. Some are actually playing the character that we know them as, and others are not.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, we have. I mean, I'm in it myself, although not as a Federation officer.
Right.
I play a civilian this time.
Right.
And based on the way the story is set up, and we have other characters who go back and forth between their Starfleet characters and other characters. So so that also happens in this one as well. It's very different in the way we set out to tell the story, and we have different elements in there that allow us to cross the timelines and the people that are from the different shows.
Love those timeline crossovers.
Yeah.
we have an instant message from PSI. He says, "I read on the site that Paramount did not back the miniseries. How did they get permission to make it?"
Well, you can make any kind of movie you want. The question comes down to whether or not you can sell it for profit. In order to sell anything that you make that is copywritten, you have to have permission from the person who owns the copyright. In this case, would be CBS or Paramount, and you'd have to have either pay for a license to sell it or make some kind of deal with them to sell it.
So you were telling me that's how come it's online and free.
Yes.
So now, who does this then? I mean, I'm assuming you guys aren't working for free.
Well, in fact, the movie had a budget. Initially, it was paid for by an investor, private investor, and he is also paying for the setup of the website. And the website itself also has other properties on it, which can be bought and purchased. So it's more or less a way to get people to come to the site and to see what else they have and what's available, as well as to enjoy watching the 3 parts of Gods and Men. But initially it was initially designed and done to be streamed
right.
live, And there's a possibility that it might we might be able to put it out on DVD at some point in time in the future, but that would have to depend upon the studios.
Now, part 1 is already out for people to
Yes.
see. We'll give that website out at the end of the show,
Yeah.
and then 2 and 3 will be coming soon.
Right.
So why don't we go ahead and take a look at one clip we have from it. So just in case someone out there watching hasn't seen any of it yet,
Yeah.
they'll get up to speed a little bit.
On screen.
None of you pathetic little patak will ever learn. You must dominate. Be dominated. Fire.
Yeah.
General
AG.
Martok, he was kicking my, he was great in
It
this.
was wonderful. It was
As the
exceptional.
whole cast was, yeah.
Wonderful performances from everyone. Initially, when I went out there to direct this project, I wasn't sure what we were going to get because it was on location. It was a place that I had never been before, and I hadn't seen the sets. I was just told what they had, and I wasn't sure how it was going to turn out. And it wasn't until after 2 or 3 days into it that we started looking back at some of the footage, and we realized that the things were looking really good, and
Now-
the performances were just exceptional.
I'm sorry, you said you didn't see the sets or the locations?
No, I had not had
That
a
must have
chance to prep.
complicated set days. And
Well, I got out there, I think, a day or two before we started shooting, and I knew that they had scale representations of the original series sets. I know they had corridor, they had a bridge, they had engineering, a briefing room. So I knew they had those things, and I could pretty much remember what they looked like. So I knew what I was going to be working with as far as the bridge set. There'd be 360 degrees. They have a view screen. They have all that good stuff, and I knew where the placement of all the stations basically were. We had schematics, I had drawings and stuff and sketches to look at, but I wasn't actually there. So as it turned out, the main key to that whole thing essentially was bringing out my DP, Doug Knapp, who was one of our DPs on Voyager. And that was really the key. I think without Doug, we would have been in big trouble in getting a decent look for the piece at the end of the day.
now, speaking of Voyager, you've directed several episodes of that series. How would you compare directing this to Voyager?
Well, the episode of Voyager, Living Witness, for example, was $1.2 million to budget. Is a budget. This one was, $1.50. It's a huge difference in resources and funds, and also crew and personnel and equipment and any number of things you can imagine. It really makes a huge difference if you have the resources to do something that is period, not a contemporary piece about these two brothers living in a house. You can shoot that on a shoestring and make it happen because it's all about the characters and the dialogue and the people, and you don't have to worry about it.
Here, there's like an expectation of what you're going to see. And
Yeah, you have to compete doing a science fiction project with whatever's out there already. You've got to compete with what people are watching every day. So you've got to come up with something that's decent looking, and at the same time, that even the smallest things, like, for example, costumes, have to be considered. They can't just bring something out of the closet to wear. And in fact, we got there for shooting, and 2 days before we started shooting, we had no costumes for the principal characters. There were 7 principal costumes that were supposed to be made. They were not made, and they were not sent. So we had to recruit someone who was there just as an onlooker and or for vacation time, and they ended up actually saving us. The lady's name is Deborah Hartwell. She was a savior in helping us put together costumes out of pieces of material, parts of things we picked up from Walmart. In one case, I think some curtain material. She put together costumes for 7 principal characters inside of every day for 4 days. Just prior to shooting, she had stuff made, and there was nobody to help her. There was no wardrobe department to speak of. There was no supervision, no organization, no nothing in that area because it didn't exist.
Yet you still had a green female character, right?
Yeah, we had
true to Star Trek.
We had wonderful. The costumes all worked quite nicely. We shot with those costumes there, and a couple of them we shot with when we came back to L.A. to shoot the last 3 days of the show. So it was people who really on this production who really pitched in with very little, not having the financial resources to develop and have a super, nice quality department head organizations done ahead of time that pitched in to make this thing happen. Without them, we wouldn't have gotten it done.
Poolman says the crew sounds like the Stream.TV. Hey, we wish we had a crew that big. Now, one of the things I heard you say in another interview that I thought was interesting, someone else had asked you about the whole Paramount issue and how did you do it without it.
Yeah.
And you were explaining that, there was actually a benefit to that, because you were able to do things a little bit differently, creatively, without their involvement. So I was curious what some of those things were.
Well, creatively, we could tell any story we wanted to. Mm-hmm. Absolutely any story with any characters in any place that we wanted to tell the story in terms of how it was shot. We could do anything we wanted to. I think that if we had an involvement with Paramount from the beginning, you would be talking about a whole lot of hands in the pie in order to get it done. So I think that the way that we do it, as any independent project is, you have a lot more control over it as the producers or the directors or the writers to be able to put it together by yourself and not have to have any kind of interference creatively. With the Paramount involvement being there or not being there strictly comes down to what you do with it when it's finished. That's entirely what it comes down to.
I thought stylistically there were some. I love the music.
Yes,
that you had in this.
Very good music.
I felt like that really drove it. It kind of created a sense of urgency.
Yes.
Maybe not as typical.
Yeah, we had many requests from composers who wanted to score this thing, and also stylistically, yeah. The one thing that I wanted to do was not shoot it to make it look like it was the same as it was on the features that we've had before or the series that we had. That was one thing I did want to do, especially in the story when we left. If we leave the current time, that the story starts out shot one way, and then all of a sudden we transition to the other style. And I wanted to really to make it as free as possible and loose as possible in that style, so that it breaks that mold of the look and feel of what we've seen before. And I think that's what you need to do, even if you're going to do another Star Trek piece beyond this.
Right.
You got to break the mold and go out, and bring it more into the contemporary feel of what you see on television generally these days and on film.
Now, what did you shoot this project on?
We shot this on Panasonic DVX 100.
Wow.
Believe it or not.
Just like the Stream.TV, right?
24p, yeah. Not even HD.
Not even.
And quite frankly, that is the camera's a workhorse, and it does a wonderful job, and I love the look. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you look at it, it looks like film. So with the right kind of lighting, that camera does wonders.
Yeah, I think between that and the music and the different angles that you shot, that made it very interesting to me.
Comes together. Very good composer on this, Justin.
Let's see. PSI wants to know. Actually, no, I'm looking at Website Guy. How many old school Trek characters were on set at one time?
We had at one time probably 1, 2, 3, 4, about 4 or 5 at any given time. I think that was the maximum, because people were flying in and flying out based on how many days they were working. So they might fly in one day, work, and then take off the next day. So when we were, I think at one time we may have had 4 or 5 on at the same time.
Now in 2 and 3, you're going to have additional Star Trek characters making appearances?
Yes, we will. These characters will not be characters who were originally on the series. One of the characters will represent a character who was on the original series. Gotcha. We couldn't get. There were 2 people we wanted to get. We couldn't get. One was signed on, and then something came up. They couldn't make it, and the other one was not able to make it at all. So we were trying to get them on there as the original people, but it didn't work out. So we have characters actually playing those characters in terms of name, and one of them looks a lot like that character, and the other one works very well as a villain. So the other characters that we had were basically, for example, JG played a Klingon in this. He didn't play the same Klingon character he plays in the original in the series, but he does play a Klingon. So and we had Chase Masterson, who plays an Orion slave girl. And we had Crystal Allen, who had played an Orion slave girl in the series, who was playing a different character, a bridge crew character on one of the ships this time. So we kind of crossed paths with some of these actors and characters where you recognize them, but they may not be in the same place that you expect them to be.
And your old foil in Voyager, Ethan Phillips.
Yes, Ethan Phillips. Yes.
He had a very fun role in this.
We crabbed Ethan for that scene. We didn't cast him until near the end because he was not available, and then finally the schedule opened up. We shot a little bit later on, and he was ready to go. So I said, "Well, Ethan, you got to come and do this for us." And he was more than happy to come and do it. And again, we just wanted to give him. I love that cameo for him because it's so different than what he's done before, and it's him, you know.
Well, he had a line that just cracks me up. The guy's trying to like choke him for information. He's like, "Hey, it's not exactly classified."
Exactly.
Here you go.
Exactly. Here it is.
Don't torture me for that. I really enjoyed that. Pullman chimes in with, "Who needs HD when the target media is the web, right? Files are too big."
Yeah. Well, even with the streaming that we have on this, the major complaint, of course, was buffering. We still have buffering issues with streams. And when you do, for example, on YouTube, the quality of those streams are, they're god awful in some cases. So to be able to get the resolution, you got to have. That's what takes it and makes it chunky. Is trying to get that resolution in there to make the at least what you're seeing quality. So it still have buffering issues that I think that they'll probably try to work out with Act. Hopefully with Act 2 and 3, they'll try to work those out. Our technology still at present is not as good as it could be. And from what I understand, in fact, I understand that the way things are going right now, unless they change the entire infrastructure of the web, the video content alone will choke it in the next couple of years. So that's what I've heard. So.
We have a random comment from Susan Harkins. Kelsey Grammer is awesome. he was a captain, I think, in an episode of The Next Generation.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what Susan's referring to.
He's awesome anyway. Yeah.
No, definitely.
He's amazing.
For a lot of things. Let's see what Cy wants now. Let's see. There is only one part available now. Will we be able to get the whole thing at once, or will the parts be deleted as the new ones are posted?
I'm not sure. I got a feeling they're probably going to leave all those parts up there that have already been streaming so that you can see either one of them or see them in sequence on there. I'd have to ask Sky about that. I'm not absolutely certain about that. We will, I'm sure, find out nonetheless pretty soon.
Now, directing. There was one moment I heard you talking about with Walter Koenig where you were getting ready to do a scene.
Yeah.
And you had in your mind as the director how you wanted him to do it. He says, "Let me try something." And you fell in love with it.
Oh, yeah. Walter, there was a scene in the auxiliary engineering room, which is a fairly emotional piece about that in which he reflects on his past, which suffered some unfortunate events. And at the time, I thought it might have been done as a monologue somewhat reflectively as he's remembering it. And in fact, he did it more as outwardly as an attack. I want to say it as an attack, but he did it much more an outward, directed to the other person. As he remembered it and recalled it, and it was absolutely amazing. And all he said was, "I just want to try something." That was all it was. And I said, "Okay, good, let's do that." And we rolled on it, and all I wanted to make sure is that I got it. I looked at the camera, man, did we get that? Because we shot everything with 2 cameras simultaneously almost the entire time. We always had 2 guys running camera, and so it was always good to, if I didn't get something from one angle, I could get it from another. So that's really saved my tush a couple of times.
Well, yeah, and I think the reason why I bring it up again here, because like I said, I heard you talking about it elsewhere, was just the importance of a director to be open and flexible, right? I mean, if you were closed-minded at that particular juncture, you would have missed something.
It's impossible. The writer gives you the material. You're going to interpret it one way, and then the actor is going to interpret it another way, and then the editor is going to interpret it again. You see, because the editor can change the entire piece around in terms of the pace, in terms of the sequence and the plot, and the way that you and the way that you emphasize certain things. All you're giving them is raw footage. I mean, there's no movie there until he actually assembles it, and he may come up with an idea that, man, this is amazing. To take this performance or this moment and put it over here in front instead of in back, or let's break it up, or let's split the screen here so we can watch 2 things happen at the same time, where you might not have been thinking about that when you shot it. And working on the set, yes, absolutely, you have to give the actors and if you cross your fingers and hope that you have the time to do it in the day.
You shot 11 days, about 90 pages of material, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so if you have the time. And you're fortunate enough to have enough time to run a scene a number of times to get the actor, allow the actor to have a chance to really work the material and work the moments, especially if there's one or two players that are doing the scene. That is the main thing. And interpreting the scene, yes, there can be, you can go head to head with people on from time to time trying to, because you do have a vision of it doing this one thing this way, and they have another vision of it. And the main overriding concern is, from my standpoint, is it consistent with what we've already seen? Is it consistent with what we've established for this character? If it's not, that's the point of contention that I may have to raise at in that moment. Is just, does it match? Does it make sense?
Right.
What's happening here?
Right.
Now, it may be a level that's high, real high, or may be something that's very, very subtle. And what you can do in that situation is shoot it both ways.
Right.
You already got it set up. You know, you already paid for it, so you might as well just have them do it a couple of ways. Try it big, try it small. Now, when you get in the editing room, you never know. You may be surprised and say, "Well, that does work better than what I had in mind," and then you have it. But you got it both ways. It's in the can. You're fine.
Speaking of time restraints, though, were there scenes that you didn't get to spend as much time on as you would have liked? Because there are those choices in basically indie filmmaking, which it sounds like this was.
There's choices. You make choices as to whether where you want to put what basket you want to put your eggs in. If you only got a certain amount of time, some scenes are going to be more important than others. We did a lot. Well, we did a lot of editing and cutting in the script the day of shooting each day. We did a lot of trimming, a lot of rewriting, and a lot of cutting and editing in the script before we shot it on each consecutive morning. We would come in, I would sit down with the writer, the first AD, and we'd sit down and we'd all look at the script and go, well, this scene, this doesn't make any sense if they go here. Why don't we cut this out and do it here instead? And then we would rewrite it and just shoot it that way, and then we saved ourselves a lot of pages and a lot of moments, a lot of time. So we fortunately bought ourselves enough time for each one of these moments to get it done. We did not have really long days. I think we only shot, one of the longest days we shot maybe was 10 hours. Otherwise, we were usually done in 8 hours on each day. And our shooting schedule in upstate New York was we had 9 days, 8 days plus 9 days, a ninth day for contingency, and we never used the ninth day. We got it all done.
Wow.
So we did really, we moved on this thing.
Well, if someone wants to know, I just see Russ, Brian, I don't see the full name, but how long did it take making the whole movie? So since we said 11 days, how about from pre-production to post?
Yeah, 11 days to shoot it, to actually get it in the can, and then a year plus, a year and a month at least to get all the editing, to get all the post work done on it. I'd say a year and 2 months to get all the post work done on it. So it took a while, because in the post process we have, again, because it's a sci-fi movie, we have CGI. We have to represent ships in space and attacks and planets blowing up and all this stuff. So we need a lot of CGI work done on it. And the guys that are doing it for us are absolutely fantastic. There's only 4 of them, and they're doing it on their free time.
Wait, I have to interrupt for this very special IM we got coming in. Ustreamer 40799. I am watching part 1 right now, and I cannot wait to see the whole thing. Sorry to cut you off. That just seemed like so in the moment. I had to mention that.
The miracle of cyberspace. Here we go. Watching. Oh, he's watching it now.
He's listening to the interview, watching.
Well, in fact, I'm hoping that the stream is, that the buffering's not too bad, and that they do enjoy it, even with a little bit of the difficulty with the streaming. But yeah, the whole thing, eventually everybody will see it. We have a premiere in Phoenix coming up, and I think not this weekend, but the following weekend, on 26th. We're going to be airing, I think, the first and second act we're going to be showing it on screen, projecting it. So with the right kind of sound and the right look and all this good stuff. And even then, we won't have Act 3 finished yet because it's still being worked on. But these guys are working on their own time to do all the post work. We had people dedicate their time doing special effects on camera. When we were shooting it on the sets, Howard, this guy named Howard, is our special effects guy, came up, and he drove 8 hours up there to New York to do this, and 8 hours back home for free to dedicate his time to give us the on-camera explosions and things on the set, and they were just amazing. Right. And so the CGI guys doing the post work, without them, we would be. And even the editor, same thing. A lot of time by the editors being done without being paid. So this is really, this whole thing has come together with people who really want to be part of it.
That's amazing. Yeah,
phenomenal. You couldn't do it without that.
Yeah, no, definitely to have what you have and what you need again to sell the look that people are used to seeing. Yeah, Johnny Mac. Other than, not McEnroe, other than L.A., where was the content shot? Was it all in L.A.? Were there any?
We shot 8 days in Port Henry, New York, upstate New York, and then we shot 3 days Here in Los Angeles, we shot out in Vasquez Rocks, which is out in the valley. We shot one day at a person's house up in Placentia, I think it was. We shot up there. No, La Cañada. And then we shot another day at a studio up in Burbank, interior studio that had a couple of sets that were already built for us, and we just used those sets and relit them and shot a couple of places. So we did some. We had 3 days here in different places, and we worked out some nice things. So,
what was your most challenging location or day on set?
I would say the most challenging part of this whole shoot was upstate New York and Port Henry. It was done in the summertime. The building we shot in had no air conditioning. It had a tin roof, which was not very handy when it rained because of the noise. It was hot as blue blazes, mosquitoes everywhere, and and we didn't have the crew that we needed really to facilitate getting things done quickly and efficiently. Hardly any crew, and we had again a problem with getting costumes. We had no costumes that were available when they were supposed to be, and so we were deficient in a number of key areas in terms of production going, and we had to shoot at nighttime because it was so blazing hot on the set, and we couldn't cool it down. So that was the main thing that was the most difficult about any of this at all. Shooting in L.A. was very different because when I was here, we had crews here, we had locations here, we had the facilities and
more water, Mr. Russ.
Yes,
like,
trucks and vans and trailers and things like that.
Right.
All those goodies that you need to have here. We had everything here that we needed, so it was much easier to shoot in Los Angeles. It was really the 8 days in Port Henry that were absolutely a nightmare.
And all you can pretty much do was grit and bear it, right? There was no cavalry, right?
That was all we could do. We had the cell phone service didn't work most of the time, so there was and you got to communicate with people on a project like this. But the actors flew in. They were very, very patient with us, and they came in gracious. They did their job. They did the best they could, and they delivered a great performance with little or no complaints. And that was spectacular. That really helped us get through shooting like that. And again, it's under the circumstances. When you have X amount of dollars and X amount of time to get that money spent on certain things, you don't have to worry about that. And this is an extraordinary piece. It's not something you can shoot again in your backyard. You've got to have the accoutrement.
Right.
So.
Hold the kite.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Drastic Fantastic says this is terrific. My day has been made. How about that? Another live testimonial.
Cool.
Well, let's. I know one more clip to take a look at, and let's catch some more action.
And what about peace and non-interference? Are they not necessary?
I thought so once. Not anymore. I've been hunting that butcher for 20 years.
Why? Because he's part of the Galactic One? Well, that's not good enough.
Because he slaughtered my family! Do you know what you did?
May you live long.
Gotta say, got a little emotional when I saw that the first time. I mean, I've never seen Live Long and Prosper not finished.
Finished, yeah.
Cut that baby. What? And now I realize you're not even. Oh, so that could possibly be the end of that character there. We don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know.
We don't know.
We have to watch the story to find out what happens. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Let's see. Glamorous wants to know. Glamorous Foxy.
Foxy Soxy.
Oh, okay. There you
Foxy Foxy. It's hard to pronounce.
Ask him, Tim, I guess he's talking about, what it was like imagining space creatures, and did they use lots of green screens?
On this project, all of the creatures and stuff we had a makeup team that was based out of Washington State, Seattle. Tim Vitito came out and did all the headed up the makeup team for us, and was very good. And everybody that worked on it for makeup was very good. So the characters, so he got the characters, they had to be painted green. He got them green, and the Klingon stuff put together. He put on my makeup as well. So we had all that taken care of. We didn't do. The only green screen stuff we did was the view screen things that were on the ship. If we have a view screen shot, we used a green screen for that. But otherwise, we didn't really have that much green screen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ustreamer 39202. Is the story Enterprise-based or a new ship?
The story is initially the original Enterprise from the original series.
Enterprise B, right?
Yes, right. This is which is now a museum ship. In the
Right.
beginning of the story.
Oh, actually, yeah, no, the original Enterprise, because it's a museum ship, right?
It's a museum ship. This is
Right.
the very first one, the original one, yeah. And later on, it's an entirely different beast altogether.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Sol Roth, is it sanctioned by Viacom? No, it is not, I'm assuming.
No, it is not. And it would actually be CBS that owns
Right.
it now. CBS, it is not a question of being sanctioned. It is a question of whether there's a license to sell it.
Right.
As long as you don't sell it
Right.
For profit, you can do whatever you want.
Right. Now, it's kind of known amongst Star Trek fans, I've heard you talk about it, that, Gene Roddenberry's attempt with the whole Star Trek series was to kind of cloak issues of the day in
Yeah.
the characters of Star Trek,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I felt like in this, it was a little more upfront maybe than some other shows. Am I right on that? Wrong on that?
Well, there are moments in this show where we do talk about issues of the day, and it was one of the things that I wanted to have in the story, because that is true to what Roddenberry was doing. He was examining our social issues and things through the guise of science fiction characters and circumstances. So. We did want to bring up things that were happening right now, i.e. The issue of terrorism, and also the issues of freedom versus security, which we talk about, Patriot Act and things like that, and what would you give up in order to be secure. So we have those two things are juxtaposed in this, and definitely brought up as issues. And the characters, you have to decide whether you would side with them or not.
I felt you presenting arguments on both sides, at least in part one.
Yes, and there's definitely arguments on both sides. There's the Chekhov. Walter Koenig's character plays this character who's sort of almost like a rogue character. He's a rebel, and
That was fun to see him like that.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And he played it to the hilt. And he and his partner Gary Graham, as part of the rebel group, you want to fight, you want to root for them, but by the same token, there is a streak in him that is somewhat selfish in that the things that he wants, because he's been hurt in the past and he wants revenge. So there's issues of vengeance as well going on here that are personal, that supersede the cause that he's fighting for. So that conflict comes up with his own cohort in this thing.
Yeah, and then you see what happens to the pacifists in part one.
Yeah.
What happens to them?
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, just when
Quick and dirty. Yeah.
just so when you think it's one. So I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Drastic Fantastic wants to know, what was it like working with the original series actors? Had you met them before? Well, you've actually bounced around.
Yeah,
a lot of
I have
series.
actually. I worked with Nichelle Nichols, and I worked with Walter Koenig in the short film Roddenberry and Patrol, again produced by the same producer. So I had worked with both of them before. It was a little bit more difficult with Nichelle, because she had just come off another project before she got her to shoot ours, so she didn't have a lot of time with the material to work with us. So,
but this still isn't your father's Captain Uhura. This is.
Oh no! This is different. Yeah, this character is different.
This character,
very different, and we.
But she is still Captain Uhura. She's
still Uhura. Yes.
Right. Yeah.
And you will see her in a dual role.
Right.
And it was difficult for her initially because she wanted to make some changes in the script and things like that, and there wasn't time to get that done prior to shooting. So some of that was problematic, but because of the nature and the way we shot it, and the time we would work in the daytime on the sets, just finishing up or rearranging or whatever, and then we would work on the script and making cuts and changes. So during that time, we could get her changes or cuts and lines done, and then we could work around it. It didn't really hold us up that much. It was just something that had to be addressed, and because she just come off this other project, she wanted to be more prepared for it and have more time with it, but she didn't have a chance to. So we did what we did. We took our time,
right.
And we had the time to shoot everything and get it done, and that was great.
Now, what was it like working with some of the characters maybe who you hadn't met before? Like Gary Graham, you guys compare notes on what it's like playing a Vulcan? I mean, what?
Gary Graham, yeah. He, generally we would have a chance to talk about how we wanted to play these guys and how we wanted to do it. And I think those guys worked together a lot more. Walter and Gary worked together a lot more because they were partners in this project, in the story. So they worked together on how that was going to be done. Gary basically walked in and started, doing this bit, and I didn't have to give him much of anything. And in general, I didn't have to give any of these guys much of anything. Everybody came in and delivered, and there were very few notes, honestly, given by myself in terms of moments. I might have said, take it down or up a notch or two, or why don't we try this and see if that works. But very seldom did we have to do that, because everybody had it dialed in when they got there. It was really amazing. I mean, as far as notes for Nichelle, I have to give her any notes. She knows what to do with that character in those moments. I mean, you can see it. There wasn't something I had to wrench out of her, or Walter. I had to coax him to give me this and that. I honestly, we're talking about also Garrett Wang. Garrett Wang is in there. He's from Voyager, and he plays somebody entirely different than what he was. I mean, opposite end of the spectrum. And he blew me away.
If I didn't know he was in it, I might not have even recognized him. That's how different he was.
Think about it. Yeah. And I did not, there was no discussion about that. I mean, obviously it was on the script.
Right.
I didn't say a word. We talked about how the look was going to be. We tried a couple different looks and that kind of thing. But essentially, when he got on there with the dialogue, he just delivered it. I mean, I cannot tell you. This is why when I looked at this thing 3 or 4 days in, I started looking at the footage, and I realized, oh, man, this is actually pretty decent. I mean, this is looking amazing. Right. So we had the pros there doing the job and coming prepared, coming to deliver, and they delivered. And I did not have to spend hardly any time having to worry about how the scene was going to play, or tweaking this or tweaking that. Some of the stuff I'm in the scenes myself, so I'm like, I'm trying to concentrate on what I'm doing in front of the camera, and at the same time I'm thinking about what's off the camera. So that was one of the most what I'm going to say, freeing sort of things that I could imagine, just to allow me to shoot this thing and not have to worry about performances. They came and they did their thing.
Well, Larson has a couple comments. One is a question: any chance of seeing this in theaters?
Probably not.
Why
I would
not?
say it would be more of a chance of it being, if it was in a theater, it would have to be something that would be screened but not charged, unless it was something, again, that was licensed.
But hypothetically, if this kind of does well enough through the internet, maybe
possibly,
maybe CBS gets involved and there's a DVD release.
Possibly DVD release.
Probably.
That's a possibility, and I can't. There's no way I can guarantee that. It's entirely up to the people over there in acquisitions if they want to take it. If they want to produce a DVD about it or whatever, that it's up to them.
Right.
They would take it, they would master it, they would do they might do some ADR work on it, they'd do some post things on it, they'd have to author it, they'd have to duplicate it and then distribute it. And that takes a certain amount of money to do. So they have to see a profit in it. And if they can, I can understand why they wouldn't, but that's,
And then if they see a profit in it, who knows? Maybe Gods and Men Part 2.
Gods and Men Part 2 or something else down the line. You never know if they would be. They got a feature coming out now with JJ, so they're going to probably wait and see what happens with that.
Right.
And who knows how what that'll turn out to be. At the end of the day.
Let's see. Larson also wanted to add that comment that you really played a Vulcan on Voyager really well.
Oh, well,
and
thank
since
you
the
very
compliments
much.
are pouring in, drastic, fantastic. I love Tim Russ.
Thank you.
Laugh, smile.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's. I was lucky enough to have an opportunity to read for that role, and I was lucky enough to be. I was lucky enough to be right for it. Mm-hmm. Essentially, it does come down to being right for it.
Right.
That's a huge part of getting any of these roles anytime. Unless it's something that you're making yourself and shooting yourself and doing yourself, then you can play whatever character you want.
Right.
But if you're going in to read for something, you better be right for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Saul Roth wants to know, I'm glad this question came up, what do you think about the alleged, in all caps, plot for the next Star Trek movie?
I am not a big fan of prequels. Don't
That's why
like
I'm glad that question came up.
prequels of any kind. I tend to like either parallel or future stories, not prequels. It's like reading the back page of a book before you read the rest of the book. It's reading the back page first, and I can't understand how anybody can put together something that's that dramatic when you know that the lead characters are going to live.
Right.
So it kind of bothers me in that respect. This is going to change history. I don't like them that much. Now, that being said, it may be a fun story, it may be an interesting story. We haven't seen it yet. It hasn't been finished and it hasn't come out. So maybe it'll be good. I don't know. But I'm not a big fan of prequels.
Right. Well, as a fan of Star Trek, I can say to me it's mind-boggling why they wouldn't want to do a movie now that Voyager guys, now that you guys are back in the Alpha Quadrant,
Right.
you got the DS9 people,
Right.
Next Generation. Why not do something with all you guys?
Do a composite piece. I thought that's what they would do at some point in time. I honestly did think they would do that. And
No talks, no whispers.
nothing. Absolutely a vacuum until JJ came forth and said, I want to do this. He's got the leverage, to do it. So,
I mean, I remember I was talking to Brian, I think, before the show, what a big moment it was for Star Trek fans just to see like Data from the Next Generation and Spock have a scene together when they did that crossover
Sure.
on TV for like a season finale. Now to do it, Janeway, Picard, all that.
Picard, if you could, it would probably depend on
you and Odo, security officers, ones who, you know what I'm saying? It would be great to see all you guys interacting.
or somebody else, in command of their own ship, etc.
Right,
I mean,
right.
you could put them anywhere, anytime, doing anything. One of them could have become a civilian, could have retired from Federation and become a civilian, an ambassador, a diplomat, whatever, a teacher, a statesman, whatever. They could have been any number of things, and an independent explorer, somebody who's an entrepreneur. I mean, it could have been, these guys can go anywhere and do anything.
Chakotay could have reinvented the Maquis,
and then still come in and kick in when you need them for some information or you need them for something, some help and whatever,
And you don't know who's going to manifest what. And
you'd have no idea.
Yeah.
You could be absolutely wide open, and of course, based on who is available, and how much they're charging. There's all those elements. You have so many people you can pick and choose from.
Right.
As long as you put together a decent story.
Sure.
At the end of the day, if you got a good story, you're off and running. So.
Titanium wants to know, and you might be a little biased on this question, which is your favorite Star Trek?
In terms of, I'm wondering if in terms of film, feature films or series.
Answer whichever way you want.
The films, I did like Undiscovered Country. And I liked Wrath of Khan and First Contact. I like those three. I think for series, I am partial to the original series because I grew up, when it was in syndication for so many years and became familiar with it that way. So I kind of did like the original show. I watched a few DS9s and TNGs along the way, but not that many.
Right.
So I would say that in terms of the Star Trek projects, the features are the things that I've sort of enjoyed the most, and it would be those three. Yeah.
Now, Of Gods and Men, where can people view it online? We've said it a million times online, but where can they see it?
Of Gods and Men. Star Trek of Gods and Men.com.
Straight spelling out like that?
Yep, www.startrekofgodsandmen.com.
Now, we already have that website listed on our official thread for this particular episode. I will blog the show tomorrow and put that link in it.
Now, I
as
have
well.
the .net up on the message form. Does that work too? Or is it...
I don't know if .net works or not. I know .com does.
Okay.
I'm not sure if .net does.
Right.
If you got time to try it, you can punch it in.
I'm on it right now, so .net definitely works too.
Okay, cool. Very good.
So a couple last things then. We talked before about importance of director flexibility. Are there any other attributes or skills for would-be directors out there that you think are really important that make a good director?
I would say that the main thing that I've discovered that helps me a great deal are having the ability to walk in, for example, on the day of shooting with your A plan and being able to shoot a B or C plan, i.e. an actor or an actress doesn't make it, doesn't show up, and you got to shoot around them or shoot the scene differently with them, i.e. the location you thought you had, you don't have. The prop you thought you had, you don't have. The set piece you thought you had, you don't have. The time you thought you had, you don't have. So the key, I think, is being able to shoot under adversity. Is to shoot with a B or C plan, or being able to think on your feet and make things happen when you have to cheat something or shoot around it, or you don't have the time. Those are the things that I have found to be the most useful being a director, because it's not always going to be ideal. You're not going to always have the 2 pages a day and somebody bringing you coffee all along, and you can go back to your trailer and take a nap for a 3.5-hour lighting setup. I mean, these things are things that you generally don't have. And so being able to shoot X number of setups per day because the sun's going down and because I said somebody didn't show up or something didn't show up or whatever, those are the things that you have to be prepared to adjust your concepts and your ideas to at the last minute. And that's the most important thing. And secondarily, making sure that you get the coverage from a technical standpoint that you need. Make sure that you shoot enough coverage to get yourself out of trouble if something doesn't work. You can cut for time and you can cut around problems if you have coverage. So it's very, very critical shooting stuff to have coverage.
And that includes cutaway shots.
That's exactly what that is.
Right.
That would include coverage and including inserts, inserts, little bits and pieces, things you can break up the scene with to get in and out of a situation. Thirdly, also make sure that, of course, you're going to be focusing on performances and the actor's performance, and you want to make sure that you get at least a couple of variations of those moments in time, so that you have those to work with and play with down the line as well, because it does all come together in editing. And once you're sitting in editing, man, it's too late to go back and get what you didn't get.
Right.
So it's very critical.
Okay, we'll get you out of here on a quick update on how you're enjoying your new show, Samantha Who, ABC, Christina Applegate.
Oh yeah,
and that's once this awful strike is settled.
We can move on.
You've got 9 more episodes waiting to happen, right?
We got picked up for 9 on the back end for Samantha Who. It's a great show. Don Todd and Peter Troggett are running the show, and they're wonderful producers. They always let you know what's going on up front, how things are going, and what's happening. And the actors on the show are great. They're fun to work with. Christina's wonderful, very, very talented. They take the dialogue and can do such wonderful things with them. So I'm fortunate to have this cameo sort of role with this character, somewhat subtle, somewhat dry, not unlike Tuvok, and it's a very fun piece. And I'm hoping that when the strike is over, we can get back and shooting it again for the back 9.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, we really appreciate you coming on. It was a lot of fun having you here.
Thank you. My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and best with Of Gods and Men, best with Samantha Who.
Thank you.
And, as updates or things come on, we'll continue to post it on our website to let our fans know.
We will let you know right now, starting this week. As a matter of fact, the gala opening is on the 17th. The Star Trek tour is opening in Long Beach. And I just shot a week ago with Will Wheaton a piece for the tour. So I will be featured as Tuvok in the Star Trek tour that is opening in Long Beach.
Now, Gods of Men 2, when do we expect that to come out?
I don't know about Gods and Men 2 in terms of the feature.
The next part of the...
Oh, right, the next part of the
next installment.
Of the one we have here.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that's going to be either the end of December or the end of January or the beginning of February. I'm not sure exactly when they're going to put that one out. I think in the end of the month it's going to be
end of this month, early next month.
I'm guessing, yes, yeah. You've definitely got to stay on top of the site and make sure that you check and see what's going on, because it's up to those guys when they're happy with the final.
Right.
The final cut. There's just a little bit of work that needs to be done on it on Act 2. So it should be up and running by the end of the month, because we were trying to have it ready for Phoenix, and he said there was crossing of fingers about that, which is the 26th. So I'm hoping that at least by the beginning of next month it'll be out.
Fantastic. We'll certainly update everyone on our end when we can.
Will do.
And I'm amazed at my ability to focus during this interview, because we have a very talented little entertainer in the other room over there who was showing pictures to me during half the interview, flashing me, dancing, doing all kinds of fun stuff. Tim's daughter's in studio with us. I hope that's okay to mention.
It's absolutely. It's fine.
Okay, great. Well, again, thanks again for having us, or coming with us, joining us. Peter Paul Basler's in the other room. We didn't see him, but he is here, so I have to mention his name. Brian Grimeau, hope you enjoyed the show. I didn't get to talk to you much tonight.
I'm a huge Star Trek fan, so I'm just a happy camper.
Good deal. Well, thank you all for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Yeah, sure.
Huh?